in the womb. Now, 6 to 9 is when you will get children physical education. There is a 3 to 5 age group, and that's a specialization program. Not many colleges I go to specialize in early childhood physical education. That is a whole different topic. It's a 1-week topic. I will meet you all in another century. Okay? But that's a whole topic we need to, as a group, address of how physical education is looked at. We run that program in our company. But for you guys, 6 to 9, you must understand that learning has to be at these counters. It has to be, a guided discovery. So what do you mean by guided discovery is, a lot of the times I see children being forced to learn sport, right? I wrote a series of articles in Education World last year, and I'm of the opinion that you should start teaching sport to children between the age group of 6 to 9. I have a lot of friends who have a lot of academies, etc. I see girls who are that big who use a tennis racket, which is about 3 inches taller than them, right? And their proud mothers are like, my child is going to play tennis. So I asked the child, how do you swing the tennis racket? Okay, that's what I see, right? And if you do, 3,000 of those, it's going to take you another 15,000 repetitions to undo that skill, right? So at this age, you're basically teaching the children how do you grasp a motor pattern, right? What are the activities? You can use a football, okay? But then what are you looking at in terms of teaching them how to play football, right? So if you look at the age group of 6 to 9, you must look at guided discovery. You come up with games. You should come up with games that fit into your curriculum, right? Now, 10 to 13, that is where you're now teaching them the foundation of games, right? Why do most adults not take care of their health? Can anyone give me that answer? You all have parents. How many of your parents are physically active? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people whose parents are physically active. Unfortunately, I can't say my mom is not. I'm the only one in my family of 17 people who doesn't have diabetes, right? My mom's already had an open heart surgery. But only 5 people whose parents are physically active. Here's the reason why even today, most people are not physically active. You see, going to a gym in my idea, I've been designing gyms for the last 29 years for some of the corporates, for the government. I even won the tender for the Commonwealth Games in 2010. Going to a gym, in my opinion, as far as taking care of your health is concerned, is the most unnatural thing you look at, right? Tell me which animal uses a machine to get fit. Have you ever seen an elephant on a tricep machine? Or an orangutan, doing a barbell press, right? So being fit, right, is the domain of specialization. When you have someone who can display a high level of movement competency, and then you're taking them into that elite stratosphere of performance. Health is about how much can you move. So here is where you should teach children how to play a lot of games. Right? So my question to you all is, as physical education, your job is not to produce champions. Your job is to make sure your children, okay, under your guidance, know how to play a variety of sport. Right? Why do most girls get into college and get fat? Anybody? Ladies? No? And it's because most girls only So you're not physical educators on paper, you're not physical educators in action. That has to change. Your mind has to be primed to say, I want to move, right? And you guys are half my age. The hair, I'm actually 18, but I just shaved my hair, right? Okay, but you guys are like half my age, right? Now, what are the challenges? This is to me one of the most important things we need to change in physical education. I grew up in Pune. Okay, I went to the Bishop School and I went to one-year college. And for me, physical education has not changed from the time I was in school, right? Because the first thing I see when I ask BPH and MPH students to demonstrate a class, this is the first thing they do. Read that slide. That is the biggest waste of time. But that's what you are taught in your classes. You must understand, children have 30 minutes, maybe twice a week to play. If you as a physical educator get the children to stand in line, right, it serves no purpose. If I am standing in line versus someone who's 6 feet tall and someone who is 5 feet tall, I already know they're taller than me and they're shorter than me. I don't need to stand in line. That's a waste of time. Physical education is about learning the skill to be able to get your children moving as soon as possible. Right? That's the first waste of time. Now, this list, if you read this list, these are the challenges we've got to change in physical education. The sad part is I still see this, even today, from students of the best colleges in India. Right? You cannot. Physical education is not about any of this. If you bring even one of these things on the slide, you are not in physical education. Your job is to make sure the schools that you go to understand that physical education is not punishment. I mean, I always see this. Child has not done the math homework. Math teacher says this child cannot go for PE today. Have you heard that? You guys? Definitely. My question to the maths teacher is, my child has not done the physical education activity, so I won't send him for maths tomorrow. That's fair, isn't it? Yes? So you cannot use punishment for physical activity, right? You cannot skew that mental idea in their head that this is more valuable than this. My favorite answer to parents who feel that academics are more important than physical activity is simply this. A genius is worth nothing if you have a dead genius. Get my point? If you are going to die at 45 of a heart attack, your brain is not going to be worth anything. Right? Like Stephen Hawking is one of my favorite guys. He's brilliant. There was a movie made on him. The gentleman who acted got the best actor for the best Oscar. Right? Best actor Oscar. Right? But he's in a wheelchair. Now, you can have 1 out of, 5 billion people like that. Imagine if we all were in wheelchairs with brains like Stephen Hawking. We'd have a very, very difficult or different society. Colonel Chima would be pulling his hair out. He'll come to my state. Because you wouldn't have athletes to become Olympic champions. Right? So, you've got to make sure that your physical activities in class, you must be aware that physical education does not entail this. You cannot have favorites. You must learn how to mix the boys and girls when they play. Colonel Chima mentioned of the importance of having girls come in, right, and take care of their health. You cannot have girls stand out of the class flapping their hair and talking. That is not physical education. It is your job to get them in and active. The way you do it is by having a lot of structure, right? So, in a nutshell, I won't take too long here. Colonel Chima also mentioned this. We are facing a colossal health problem, right? Making Olympic champions, that should be right now our last issue I meet a lot of BPN and MPN students, is the lack of how you put together your program. Now, we started this company 5 years back, is because schools came to us and said, you know, we want a good structure for physical education, right? So we tied up with one of the best PE programs in the world, so we're partners of Smart, and they have a very systematic program that they've come up with. Over the last 5 years, we've evolved that program into what is known as the Leap Start program, and I think that is probably the best PE program in all of India, right? I have the privilege of some of my colleagues sitting in the audience, and some of them are from this college itself, right? So to have a structure, whether you join an institute or a school, you must be prepared to deliver physical education. Just having the knowledge of lesson plans alone is not enough. Because remember, a lot of your lesson plans are sports plans, right? And not physical education plans. So how do you solve that in a nutshell? The number one thing is all your activities must be based on a guided standard. Now, the unfortunate part in India is we don't have a standard for physical education and movement, right? CBSE, IB, IGSE, ICSE, they have guidelines, right? I work with the CBSE board and I work with the IB board, and those are guidelines. I mean, some of the guidelines are downright ridiculous, okay? So some of the things I see as assessments are sportsmanship. Sportsmanship, you want to use that as an assessment for physical education, that is worthless, right? So you have to, number one, make sure that you have guidelines to create your lessons or to create your curriculums, okay? Don't pull out everything from the net. You must understand this. The internet is 99% rubbish. Every idiot now has a Facebook page or a blog, right? So unless you have absolute trust on the information you're taking, right, you must verify that information. Does my activity set against the standard? What standard could you use? Use a very simple scope and sequence when you're building activity. If you don't know what scope and sequence is, ask me when we're doing the panel discussion and I'll tell you. But it's very simple. It's the progression of movement. Can anyone tell me what the first step of walking is? You all know how to walk? Yes? Guys, I'm not going to feed you lunch. It's only 1 o'clock. I'm asking you a basic question. Do you know how to walk? Yes or no? Hands up. Wow, Shraddha man, they need lunch. Alright, you all know how to walk. Tell me, what are the stages that a child needs to do to get to walking? I'll even cut that final. What is the first thing a child needs to learn to walk? Stand. Colonel, you're out of this discussion. You probably know the answers. You don't raise your hand. Balance. Anyone else? Any mommies in this room? No mommies? Yes? Mommies? No mommies? Yes? Mommies? Mommies? You have the answer. The first step to walking is raising your head. Raising your head. Have you seen a newborn baby? It can't move. What does a newborn baby do? Lie on their back. The central nervous system gets to understand walking, and that's why the child keeps kicking on its back, right? But that's a precondition of the central nervous system. The first step is when the child learns to lift their head. When the child learns to lift their head, he goes into step 2, which is everyone wearing the time. This is your final exam question. No, it's not valid. If I'm lifting my head, what do you think I'll do next? Sorry? Crawling? No. Rolling. Rolling. One of my specializations is I'm a corrective exercise specialist, right? And when I get people who have a back problem, They kick in with their